Okay, dear participants, a very good afternoon. Hearty welcome to the second day of the Online FDP on Advanced Data Analysis using Spreadsheet. We will be starting off with a session now. We have already shared the data sets for today's session with all of you in the email. What we've also done is that we've shared the handouts of yesterday's session with all of you so that you could use the material. I've also got a couple of requests for to share the recordings of yesterday's session. Yesterday's session's recording, we are in the process of editing it. Once it has been edited, it will be uploaded onto YouTube, and we will be sharing. We'll be happy to share the links with you. Before we start off with today's session, let's just quickly do a refresher of what we had covered yesterday. Yesterday, we had started. We got an understanding about what is meant by a spreadsheet. We saw that we've discussed the features of MS Excel. Then we started off with a functionality called as paste special. We saw that using paste special, you could separate value from format. We've also discussed some scenarios where we could use paste special. We saw that we could use paste special to carry out operations. We could also use paste special in scenarios where we have to skip some blanks. Then from there, we will continue. Then we had also covered, as a part of yesterday's session, we had also covered if functionality. And today's, we will be continuing from there. Okay. So let's quickly get back. Today, we will be learning a combination of if formula along with certain logical operators. Okay. We will be learning the application of if formula with some logical operators. Now, there are predominantly four major logical operators in MS Excel, but we will not be covering all the operators. We will be covering only some of them. Okay. There are a couple of people who have raised your hands. Let me just quickly try and unmute you, just to.
Hello, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, please little bit louder, sir.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so like what I was explaining to you was in MS Excel we have predominantly four major logical operators: and, or, XOR, not. Okay, we will not be as a part of this FTP session. We will be covering only two of these logical operators. The explanation for these logical operators, for your better understanding, I have put together it in the handouts, and I will be sharing the handouts for you. Now, for today's session, I want all of you to turn back to your Excel sheets and please turn over to the Excel sheet that says if hyphen and. Okay, if hyphen and. Okay, if hyphen and. Now, we would be using the combination of and operator with if formula, and we would try and do some more complex functionalities. Okay, we will try and do some more complex functionalities. So in yesterday's session where we had concluded, we had used if formula in the case of the students' data. We were trying to understand what is their past status. So based on the mark that they have received, or based on the mark that they have got. So we had applied if formula, and we had tried determining their past status. Now, when in today's worksheet, we have a scenario. We have a combination of two subjects marks. Okay, we have subject A, and then we have subject B. Okay, we have two sets of subjects marks. We have subject A, and then we have subject B. Okay, so if the student has to get a pass status, okay, student has to pass in subject A, and student has to also pass in subject B. Okay, then only then we say that the student has passed. Okay, only then the student has passed. So we would be using if formula along with the logical operator and then we will try and work out the formula such that we get the result. Okay, so we would be using a combination of if formula and which is a logical operator to get the desired output. So what Excel will have to do is Excel has to check if this student if this student has passed in subject A and subject B, and then give us a status that has a student passed or not. At the same time, you also have to remember if a student has failed in one subject, like the scenario here, okay, for John, like the scenario here, if the student has actually failed in subject B, then the overall result should be a fail. Okay, the overall result should be a fail. So let's try and work out the formula for this scenario. So how we will write is equal to if, which is our formula, open bracket. Now we will be applying AND, okay, which is the logical operator. So we will be using AND, which is the logical operator. Open bracket again. Okay, now we are going to specify a condition. Okay, so our condition is this has to be greater than 40. Okay, and subject B, which is mentioned in C2, this also has to be greater than 40. Okay, so subject A's marks is given to us in B2. Subject B's mark is given to us in C2. So this AND functionality will help us in comparing the marks of these two subjects. Okay, it will do a validation to see if the subject marks are more than 40. Okay, so let's close this bracket. Now, the bracket that we have closed, as of now, it is only for the AND functionality. It is for the AND formula. Okay, so what we've written so far, we've just completed with the AND functionality. Okay, but our formula is not complete. We still have to finish off with the if formula. Now, if formula, we will have to define our responses. Now, what we want is if both these conditions are fulfilled, it should come back with a pass. Okay? If both these conditions are fulfilled, it should come back with a pass. Now, what if these two conditions are not fulfilled? In such case, it is a fail. If both these conditions are not fulfilled, then it is a fail. So let's close this and let's see what happens. Okay. So it has come as pass. So what has happened is, in the case of Asif, the first student, Asif has passed in subject A and subject B. Thus, the overall result is a pass. Okay. So I'm going to try and drag this down like this, and let's see what happens. Okay, so here for John, the result has come back as fail. So let's try and analyze this. John has passed in subject A, John has failed in subject B, thus the overall result is a fail. For Kushal, Kushal has failed in subject A, but he has passed in subject B, but the overall result is still a fail. Okay, so here in the case of Amit has failed in subject A, he has failed in subject A and he has failed in subject B also. Thus, it is a fail. Okay, but in the case of Matthew, Matthew has passed in both the subjects. Thus, the overall result is a pass. Okay, so I'll repeat the formula once again. I will help you write the formula once again. How we'll begin is equal to if open bracket. Okay, if open bracket. Now we are defining the functionality. Okay, now we are going to use the AND, which is a logical operator. Okay, and open bracket. Now we are defining our conditions. So our condition is if subject A, if he is secured more than 40, and then subject B also more than 40. So made a mistake. Okay, so subject A more than 40, greater than 40. Subject B is also greater than 40. Okay, and let's close the bracket because we're just done with the AND logical operator, comma. So if these two conditions are fulfilled, then result should be a pass. So I've not completed my formula. If these two conditions are fulfilled, then it is a pass. If these two conditions are not fulfilled, then it is a fail. So let's try and close this and let's see what happens. Okay, now I'm going to try and drag this down like this. Okay, now in the data set below, I have made it a little bit more complex. what I've done is I've mentioned 3 subjects. Okay, so subject A, subject B, subject C. Okay, now here I want all of you to try writing, try and use a combination of if and the logical operator and then try and define the formula. So here, what you have to remember is, if a student's overall result has to be a pass, he has to pass in subject A, subject B, subject C. Okay, so please try this exercise on your own. I shall pause here maybe for a minute or two, and then we will continue. So please, all of you, please give it a try on your own. I hope all of you have given that a try by now. Okay, but nonetheless, I'll just quickly work this out for you. Okay, so here what will happen is, it will be is equal to if open bracket and, okay, again open bracket. Now we will be using a combination of all the subjects which are defined to us. So B9, C9 greater than 40, comma, and subject C, which is in D9, this should also be greater than 40, close the bracket. So if these conditions are fulfilled, then it is a pass, or it is a fail. Okay, so we have used a combination of if as well as the logical operator and then we have applied this. So we could, in Excel, we could use a combination of a number of formulas like this, so that it could give us the desired result. Now let's move on to the next sheet. The next logical operator that we're going to learn is OR. Okay, the next logical operator that we are going to learn is OR. So as a part of this, here Excel does not really have to look into the pass for both these subjects. If the student has passed in any one, okay, if the student has passed in any one subject, it is still considered as a pass. Okay, so even if a student has passed in subject A but he's failed in a subject B, it is still considered as a pass. So how do we write the formula in this case? So in this case, we will be using the functionality of OR. Okay, we will be using OR as the logical operator. So let's try and write this one. So is equal to if open bracket. Now instead of and, we will be using OR. Okay, we will be using OR open bracket. First subject, if this is greater than 40, or if this is greater than 40, then what happens is the student is still a pass. Student is still considered as a pass. Okay, so I'm just going to try and drag this down like this, and let's see what happens. Okay, now here what has happened is, in the case of John, John has passed in subject A, but he failed in subject B. But since I've defined it using OR functionality, Excel still takes it as a pass. Okay, Excel still takes it as a pass, because my demand now, or my requirement right now, is it doesn't matter. He just has to pass in either one of the subjects. Okay? In the case of Kushal's case, he failed in subject A, but he passed in subject B. Thus, the overall result is a pass. However, for Amit, what happened was Amit failed in subject A as well as subject B. Thus, the overall result is a fail. Okay, so this is how we could be using the logical operator and as well as or. Okay. Now let's move on to the next sheet. The next sheet that we are going is nested if. Okay. So uh, so nested if is when we have to define. We call the scenario as nested if when we have to write complex if functionalities, or when we want complex criteria to be evaluated. So I want all of you to quickly turn your attention to the screen. Here I have the marks of some students. Okay, I have the marks of some students, but I want Excel to classify them based on the performance and marks. Okay, so based on the performance and marks. So if their mark is less than 40, then it is considered as a fail, and it should give you a notation F. If their marks is between 40 to 79, we consider that as a pass, and it should give me the pass. It should give me the notation as pass. But if they've scored more than 80, then I want Excel to recognize that as an excellent. Okay, so if it can give me the notation EX. So in this case, my demand is more than uh, two. Okay, so all this while, all the if formulas that we had been discussing, we had only two scenarios. So we give the criteria. If the criteria is fulfilled, then it is one. If the criteria is true, then it has to give me one response. If the criteria is not fulfilled, then it has to give me another response. But I have more than two here. Okay, so in such cases, I will have to write a complex if formula, and such if formulas are referred to as nested ifs. Okay, such formulas are referred to as nested if. So let me give you a demonstration of how we'll be writing a nested if. So here it will be is equal to open bracket. If this mark is less than 40, okay, if this mark is less than 40, then it should give me it is a fail with a notation F. Okay, it should give me a notation F. Okay, so if this mark is less than 40, then it should give me a notation F. Okay, now so my criteria is if the mark is less than 40, then it should give me F. But what if this condition is not fulfilled? Then instead of defining my false criteria, here what I'm going to do is I'm going to define another if formula. Okay, I'm going to define another if formula. So now what I'm going to say is if the mark is less than, if the mark is less than 80, then it is considered as a pass. Okay, it is considered, if this is less than, then it is considered as a pass. Okay. Now, what if, so this is how it works. If the mark is less than 40, it is automatically a fail, which is given me with the notation F. If the mark is less than 80, then it is a pass with the notation pass. And if none of these conditions are fulfilled, then automatically the mark is excellent. So I will say here EX, and then close all the brackets, and then let me see, run this formula. Okay, so now what Excel has done is Excel has classified all my students into these three categories. Okay, it has classified all my students into these three categories, and now so this is how I would be using a nested if. So technically, a nested if is where you would be writing one if formula within another if formula. So such if formulas are referred to as nested ifs. Okay? Such if formulas are referred to as nested ifs. Now let's move on to the next formula. The next formula that we are going to learn is a formula called as match. Okay, the next formula that we are going to be learning today is called as match. Okay, okay. So match is it is basically used as a reference formula. Okay, it is used for reference, and what match does is match comes back with the relative position of a search function that we are defining. So we will have an array. In the array, we will have a series of datas, and we are asking Excel to search in that data array, and Excel will come back with the position of the value that we are searching for. Okay, Excel will come back with the position of the value that we are searching for. Okay, so I in my array. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to write, let's say I'm going to write here B. And what Excel should be doing for me is Excel should search for this letter B in my array and then come back with its position. Okay, so here in my array from A2 to A10, the letter B is located, or it's positioned at the second position. Okay, it is positioned at the second position. So let's try and write the formula to get this one, to give us this response. So is equal to, the syntax is equal to match, okay, is equal to match, open bracket. Okay, now my lookup value. Okay, so my lookup value is mentioned in C2. Okay, so I'll pinpoint it to that C2, comma. Now my lookup array. So this is my lookup array. Okay, so this is the table in which Excel should be looking up for this value B, okay, comma, and what type of match it should be. Okay, so this is when we would be using complex data set, especially when we have decimal points. So what kind of match do we want? If you don't define any match, Excel will always take it as 0, which is an exact match. So I want an exact match in this case. So I'm going to mention the criteria as 0, and I'm going to close the bracket, and I'm going to press enter. Okay. So Excel has come back with a response, and it says it is at the second position in my array. Okay, second position in my array. So let me try and change the alphabet and see what happens. Okay, let me try and change the alphabet and see what happens. I'm going to change B to I. Okay, so it is telling me it's at the ninth position. So let me just count and see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so in my array, the letter I is at the ninth position. Okay, it is at the ninth position. So I'll repeat this match functionality once again. Match is a function. It is a formula that we would be using when we want Excel to look up for a value in an array, and Excel will come back with the relative position of that value. Okay, it will come back with the relative position of that value in the array. So let's say I am going to mention the alphabet here, and Excel should come back and tell me at what position this is at in my array. So the formula is equal to match, is equal to match, open bracket, match, open bracket. My lookup value is in C2, comma. Now I have to define my array. So array refers to my table in which my data is there. Now I have to define the match type, and match type I'm defining it as 0, and let me press enter. So Excel is telling me that the letter C is at the third position in my array. Okay, it is at the third position in my array. So let's me change this to F and see what happens. Okay, it's coming back and it's saying it is at the sixth position. Okay, it is at the sixth position. Okay, now I want all of you to try writing the match formula and let me know what position is H at. Okay, so all of you please try rewriting this formula and then please let me know which position is H at, the letter H. Okay, so I'll give you a minute or two while you try that. Okay, I think one of the participants has raised their hand. So let me just try and unmute you. You can unmute yourself now.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, I wanted to know last thing that you told about 0 and 1. I am unable to select that thing.
Okay, okay. So,
Next time.
okay. So, ma'am, basically, when you write the match formula, Excel wants to understand what is the level of match that you want to apply. Do you want an exact match or do you want an approximate match? Now, in our scenario, in the case of the example that I gave, it is not an exact. It has to be an exact match. But in the case where we are dealing with decimals like the one that I've mentioned here on the screen, okay, so if Excel is looking up to find out this value, should it do it an exact match? Do I want 0.1234 or do I want something close to that? Do I want an approximate match? So in our case, in the case in which we have applied that functionality is not relevant, and if you were not to choose it, Excel will take it by default as 0. Excel will understand that you want an exact match, but you would use that you would use that functionality in cases where you're dealing with decimal datas where you want Excel to do an exact match. So in this particular data set, it is irrelevant.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I think there are a few more participants who have raised their hands. I hope I have answered your query, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. There were a few more participants who had raised their hand, but I'm not able to. If there's anyone who has a doubt in what we have dealt, you can quickly raise your hand. Maybe I can pause here for a minute and then we'll clarify your doubt and then we'll go ahead. Okay, so I think since no one is responding, then in that case, I'll go ahead. Okay, now let's all turn. Okay, I think there's Dr. Harshini who has raised the hand. So let me
Good
quickly.
afternoon. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Please tell me the syntax of nested if again. I missed out that formula.
Okay, ma'am, is it okay if I deal that in the end for you? If
Sure,
I
sure.
spend. Okay.
No issues.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I'll make a note of this, and
Yes.
nested if, surely I shall repeat that in the end again, so that we
Sure.
don't waste the other participants' time. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so let's move on to the next data set. The next data set that we have here is match now 2. Okay, match 2. So here, in this case, I have some names, and I want to type the name over here, but Excel should come back and give me the relative position of this. Okay, Excel should come back and give me the relative position. So let's say I write here Dhoni, and so let me write the formula for this. Match, open bracket, lookup value is Dhoni, okay, comma, and this is my array, okay, and let me close the bracket and let me say enter. Okay, so now what is telling me it is that it is at the third position. Okay, it is at the third position. So I want all of you to try and try and apply the match functionality and figure out the position of Robin. Okay, I want all of you to try using match formula and then figure out the position of Robin. Okay, while you're trying, I will just quickly work this out. So let me write over here, Robin, and the syntax is equal to match, open bracket, mention the lookup value that I want, comma, search in my array. Okay, and then what I want is an exact match. Okay, what I want is an exact match. So 0 and then. Okay, so it is telling me it is at the Robin is at the 7th position. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is at the 7th position. Okay. Now, sometimes if match formula by itself may not make much sense to you, but we can use match functionality with other formulas. Okay, the other formulas that we'll be learning as a part of today's remaining session and tomorrow's session. That is, tomorrow we'll be learning VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and if possible, we'll also be learning one more advanced lookup formula, which is called as the XLOOKUP. So we'll try and learn these two formulas, and we will learn how we can use a combination of all this, how we can use match along with the other formulas. Okay, so with that note, I'm just going to move ahead, and I'm going to move on to the next formula. The next formula that we're going to learn is the index formula. Okay, the next formula that we are going to be learning is the index formula. Okay, so index formula, it returns back with the value of a reference within a table or a range. Okay, so when you have an array of data, you give the coordinates. That is, you give the column number and then you give the row number. What happens is the index formula will come back and it will find out at that position, at that coordinate that you have specified, what is the value that has been mentioned. Okay, so the syntax I've displayed here on the screen is equal to index, open bracket, you have to define the array, you have to define the row number, you have to define the column number. Okay, so let's quickly learn this one. Let's quickly try and learn index formula. So I want all of you to quickly turn over to the screen. Here I have a data set, and my data set is an array which has the name of some fruits. Okay, I cannot really say it is fruit. Let me say I'll just mention this as vegetable and grocery. Okay, vegetable and grocery, and I have the quantity here. Okay, so so I've for your understanding, I have given the row reference and the column reference in different colors, so you can follow. It is easy for you to understand the values that I've laid out over here for you. Okay, so I've mentioned the row references. Now these row references are exclusively for my array. It is only for my data set. So the row reference numbers and the column reference numbers for my data array. Okay, so here I have mentioned the name of some vegetables and some grocery items, and I've mentioned the corresponding quantity to it. Okay, so so what I'm desiring is, in my array, if I say 2 1, okay, if I say 2 1, basically it should tell me in my array at these intersections, that is at row, second row, okay, and my first column, what does it mention? Okay, so what does it mention? So let me give you a demonstration of this. So is equal to in, okay, the formula is index, okay, the formula is index, open bracket, okay, open bracket. Now I have to define my array. This is my array, okay, comma. Now I have to define my row number. So my row number here is second row, okay, and what I want, the value that I'm desiring is in the first column. Okay, this in the first column. So close the bracket and press enter. Okay, so what it has done is the formula index, it has come back and it's told me the value chili is what is at the second row and first column. Okay, so it is telling me it is at the second row, first column, the value is chili. Okay, the value is chili. So I'll repeat this once again, is equal to index, open bracket, define your array, okay, comma. Now you have to mention your row number. So for me in this example, the row is 2 and my column is 1, and then close the bracket and then press enter. It is telling me it is chili. Okay, it is chili. Now here, what I want is, I want the value in third row, second column. Okay, I want the value in third row, second column. Okay, so let me write the formula for this, is equal to index, open bracket, define my array, comma. Now my column is 3 and my row, sorry, my row is 2, my column, my row is 2 and my column, my row is 3, my column is 2. I close the bracket and then press enter. So it's telling me at row 3, column 2, the value is 3200. Okay, the value is 3200. Okay, so I hope all of you have understood how to use index formula. Index formula helps us to return back and give us the value that we have highlighted in an array based on the columns and the based on the rows and the sorry, based on the rows and the columns that we have specified. So as a practice, I want you to, all of you, to try and write index formula to pull up the value which is mentioned at row 8, the first column. Okay, so row 8, first column. Okay, so I shall pause here for a minute. Please give it a try. In the meanwhile, if anyone is having any difficulty with the index formula, please don't hesitate. You can raise your hand. I'll be happy to clarify your doubt. Please quickly, you can raise your hand. I'll be happy to clarify your doubt. I hope in the meanwhile you are working on the practice scenario that I've given you. Okay, so I hope by now all of you have got the answer for that task that I had given you. I'll just quickly work this out. Is equal to index, open bracket, our array. So this is our array, okay, comma. What we want is at column 8 and then the first row, and let's close the bracket and then let's press enter. So it's coming back and it's telling us it is rice. Okay, so rice is at the 8th row, first column. Okay, so I hope all of you have got index formula. Now, before I go on to the next worksheet, I just want to quickly confirm if all of you have understood what we have in what we have covered so far. So if that's the case, I'm okay. I think there's one participant who is raised. Ma'am, let me just quickly unmute you. Ma'am, you can unmute yourself. Hello, ma'am.
So can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. So in March, the first set, we had only one row of information. So in that case, you are using one formula. Right? So there is one set of information.
Ma'am, there's a lot of static on the line, because of which I'm not able to catch your question. Is it possible for you to quickly drop me a chat?
Yes, sir. I will chat, sir. Yes,
yeah, ma'am. I'll be happy to answer your query, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So while I'll take a minute to clarify that ma'am's doubt, in the meanwhile, I just want to let all of you know that probably index formula by itself in the crude form may not be really, you may have a feeling that it's not really beneficial for us. But the moment I go on to the next worksheet, you will be able to have a clear understanding about how exactly we can use index in a combination. You can use index and match as a combination, and you can produce beautiful results that we desire. Okay, so while ma'am quickly types out a query, I'm just going to ma'am, you can continue typing your query, ma'am. I'll be happy to answer. And in the meanwhile, I'm just going to quickly move on to the next sheet. The next sheet is index and match. Okay, the next sheet is index and match. Now here, I have a slightly complex data set. Okay, so here I have a slightly complex data set. The data set that I have over here, I have the roll numbers of some students. I have their names. I have their marks for 3 subjects. Okay, I have their marks for 3 subjects. So here's what I desire. If I type out their subject name here manually, and I write their corresponding roll number here, then Excel should automatically display their mark over here. So so I will type the subject that I want, and I will type the roll number, but Excel should give me the mark over here. Okay, now this is a slightly complex scenario because Excel has to understand, based on my input, Excel has to understand which row and which column it should be looking out for. Okay, Excel should try and understand which row and which column it should be looking out for. So let me try and write this. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using a combination of index and match. Okay, I'll be using a combination of index and match. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write index open bracket. Okay, index open bracket. Now this is my array. Okay, this is where the marks are specified, comma. Now it should come back with the row number. Okay, it should come back with the row number. So row, it has to identify based on the roll number that I'm specifying. Okay, it has to identify row based on the roll number that I'm specifying. So I'm going to use match here. Okay, I'm going to use match here, open bracket. Now my match is going to be this. Okay, and where it should try and identify the roll number is in the column where I have mentioned the rows. Okay, close this bracket, comma. Again, I'm going to write another match, but this match is to identify the, and here it should look up over here, comma, this one, and then I'm going to close this bracket, and I'm going to close this bracket again and press enter. Okay, so it's giving me 97. Okay, okay, sorry, I'm so sorry. I think I've got the rows and columns mixed up. Just give me a minute. Okay, so index, and this is my array, comma, and match, open bracket, should look out for the subject, comma. The subject is specified over here, okay, comma, and again I have to write a match, and this time it should match my okay, there was a mistake in my array. Excuse me for a minute. Excuse me for a minute. Okay, I was using a different PC, and over here I have to, the setting on Excel is such that I have to keep defining the match for the criteria for match. So that was where I had gone wrong. So let me just quickly explain what I have done. So it is equal to index. So here I'm trying to use a combination of match as well as index. So based on the subject and the roll numbers that I'm specifying here in my in this particular, in these two columns, Excel will have to look out for the corresponding rows and columns. So here what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using a combination of index as well as match. Now remember, the functionality of index is such that the moment I give a coordinate, that is, I specify the column and the row, it'll come back with a value. But I'm going to be using I'm going to leverage on the functionality or the formula match, so that instead of manually defining, that is, let's say, typically this is how I would be using the index formula. So index, open bracket, this comma. Now let's say HR and A4. Okay, so in my array, this is at the so I have to manually specify it like this so that it comes back with the desired result. But instead of this, instead of specifying the instead of manually specifying the row number and column number, I'm going to be using, or I'm going to leverage on match formula. And what match formula will do for me is, match formula will look up for the roll number in this particular column. Okay, and then based on the subject that I'm specifying over here, it should, so I have to write another match again. Okay, open bracket, mention this. Okay, there was one small thing that I missed out over here. I have to mention the criteria, which was exactly the same mistake that I did before. So I have to mention that as 0, okay, comma, match, open bracket, okay, open bracket, and this is the lookup value, comma, and this is where it should be looking out for, comma, 0, comma, and then close the bracket. Okay, so it has come back as 48. And in the meanwhile, I just want to give an update to all the users who have joined me, just in case if you're using Office 2013 and 2016, you will if you're using the match functionality, then as a part of your match formula, it is mandatory for you to specify the match type. Okay, normally the PC on which that I usually work on, it runs on Office 365, which is the most advanced version as of now. So on that version, this criteria that is in as a part of my match where I'm specifying 0, it is not mandatory. Okay, so if just in case if you're using a lower version of Excel, and if you're using match functionality, it is mandatory for you to specify the criteria. Okay. However, if you're using Office 365, which is the latest version, on that it is not mandatory. Now, it is quite hard because Microsoft has slightly tweaked the functionalities depending on the version that you're using. So for example, I have an advanced version which is called as XLOOKUP on my PC, but here on this particular system that I'm using, which uses Office 2013, that functionality does not reflect. Okay, so you just in case if you are using Office 2016 or lower than that, please make sure that you make the corresponding changes in your match functionality. Now you can come to know which version you're using by clicking on File, and then you click on Account, and then you will come to know which version of Excel you would be using. Okay, so let me just quickly explain this to you once again. So is equal to index, open bracket, you have to specify the array. So this is where my marks are specified, comma. Now I'm going to write a structured match. I'm going to leverage on the functionality of match, and my match is this. Okay, this is where it has to identify the the row, okay, and it has to be an exact match. So it has to be an exact match, close the bracket, comma, and this is what I have to use for identifying my row. So again, a match, open bracket, click on this, comma, and select the series, comma, and since I'm using 2013, I have to specify the criteria, and let me close this. Okay, so it has come back as 48. So in HR, A4 has got 48. Okay, now let me try and dynamically change this. I'm going to change this to accounts. Okay, I'm going to change this to accounts, and I want the mark of A01. Okay, I want the mark of A01. Okay, so it is 100. So A01, it is 100. Okay, we'll take another example. Let's say I want the mark of A08. Okay, so I want the accounts mark of A08. So it's coming back as 93. Okay, now I'll change this. Let me put this as marketing. Okay, let me put this as marketing. Okay, A08, it is 17. Okay, and let me change the roll number now. Let me put this as A04. Okay, so A04 has scored 13. So A04 for marketing has scored 13. So this is how you could use a combination of index as well as match functionality. Okay, this is how you could use a combination of index as well as match functionality. So I'll repeat the formula once again, is equal to index, open bracket. Okay, now select your array, comma, match, open bracket, okay, roll number, comma. Now my roll numbers are mentioned in this, comma. Since I'm using 2013, I have to mention 0, which has to be exact match. Okay, again, comma. Then I have to write the next match, open bracket, select this, comma. And this is where my subjects are mentioned. Okay, comma, 0, and then close the bracket and close the bracket again. Okay, so it is coming back as 13. Okay, now let me try and dynamically change this. Let's say I want the mark of A03, it is 12. So A03 for marketing has scored 12. Okay, so just in case if any of you have a doubt in what we have dealt as on today, I'll be happy to explain, or I'll be happy to clarify. Any doubts or any queries? Okay, so with that note, we've come to the end of the session for today. We'll be winding up with today's session. We shall continue tomorrow. And as a part of tomorrow's session, we will be continuing with these lookup formulas. Tomorrow, we will be covering VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP. I was hoping to cover XLOOKUP, but I feel XLOOKUP is not supported on most of the versions. So I will not be covering XLOOKUP. Instead, I will be covering HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP in combination with match. Okay, so we will be discussing a few scenarios. We will be covering HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP in combination with match also. Okay, I think I have a few participants who has got queries. So let me just quickly unmute you. Jayalakshmi ma'am, you could unmute yourself now.
So can you please explain the formula again?
Sure, ma'am. So here, so let me just quickly give you an overview of my scenario. The scenario here is that I have the marks of some students, and I have their roll numbers, I have their accounts. Now, what I'm desiring is that I will write the subject name here, I will write their roll number here, but I want Excel to automatically pull up and give me the mark over here. Okay, so we can work this out using index. Okay, the formula, the right apt formula that we can use is index. But index has got one small drawback. For index, the coordinate, that is the column and the row, has to be specified. Okay, that's exactly what we did over here. So here, when we were specifying row 2, column 1, column 2, row 1, it was understood that it was chilly, which has to be brought up. Or here, when I specified row 3, column 2, it brought the value back as 3,200. Okay. So, but in my case, here, my row and my column are dynamic in nature. Okay. Here, it was static. In the previous example, it was static. I know for sure it is going to be 2 and 1 here. Here, it is going to be 8 and 1. So this is dynamic reference. This is static reference. But in this particular scenario, my need has changed. Now I want it to be a dynamic reference. Okay. So since I want it to be a dynamic reference, I'm going to leverage on match. So I'm going to use match functionality or match formula. Match formula will help me identify what is my row, what is my column. Okay. So match will automatically feed my coordinates to index formula, and then index formula will run accordingly. So in that light, let me explain the entire formula to you. Okay. So it is going to be is equal to index. Okay. Open bracket. My data array. Okay, so this is my array. This is where my marks are specified, comma. Now my first match, okay, the first match that I'm going to be writing is to identify the row. Okay, the first match that I'm going to be writing is to identify my row. So my row has to be identified based on the roll number. Based on the roll number that I'm specifying over here. So it has to identify what roll number I've specified over here based on this lookup over here. Okay, based on this lookup over here. So I've written the formula for match. Okay, I'm using match this much. This part will help me identify the row number. Okay, it will help me identify the row number. Now, I'm going to write the formula to identify the column. Okay, I'm going to be writing the formula to identify the column. So column, it has to identify based on the subject. So subject, I'll specify over here, comma, and this is my lookup. This is my array that Excel has to look into identify my column reference. Okay, close this and again close this, and I'm going to press enter. Okay, so let me just quickly explain this formula. This is my array. This match functionality will help me identify my row, and this match functionality, this match formula that I've written over here, it will help me identify the column. Okay, so I have written a nested formula basically. I've written one formula within another formula. Okay, and I'm going to press enter, and that is how it is coming back with the value. Okay, that is how it is coming back with the value. Okay, ma'am, I hope I have answered your query. Ma'am, you can unmute yourself. Ma'am, I hope I have answered
Thank you,
your
sir.
query. Sure.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else who has a query? Jayalakshmi ma'am, just in case if you are okay, I'll be happy to unmute you. You can go ahead and ask me your query, doubt.
So can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, better, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Sir, actually, in the actually first I had a doubt of that 0, but that you have explained at the last case. And
Okay.
one more thing is, in case of match, we are taking only one column of information. Is that possible to take more than one column, sir, in match formula?
Match, ma'am. Actually, you can define an array. Okay, you can.
Okay.
You can, but the thing is, it has to be the data has to be arranged in a linear fashion, because match will come back and give us the relative position. So it has to be arranged in a linear. So the data either has to be arranged in a row or it has to be arranged in a column.
Okay.
Only then.
So only one column or one row. Right,
that's
sir?
right, ma'am. But we cannot use an array like this. So if I give 50, it cannot give me the relative position.
Okay. Okay,
so, so the objective is that it will come back with a position. So ideally, in a nutshell, match by itself does not make any sense, but we can use match with match in combination with something else, so that it comes back and gives us the desired result.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, ma'am. So match formula as a standalone may not be very beneficial to us, but match with in combination with something else can help us.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, ma'am. And also there was a doubt about the nested if. So I'll just quickly repeat nested if once again. I'd explained that nested if basically is an if formula which has got another if formula within it. Okay. So previous cases here, the outcome here in this case, my outcome had only two possible scenarios. Either it is a pass or it is a fail. Okay. Here the scenario was either it is a pass or it is a fail. Now, but here in this case, so in this scenario, my outcome, I have only two possible outcomes. Either it is a pass or it is a fail. Okay, I don't have a third option. I don't have to look out for a third outcome. But in this scenario, I have three options. Okay, it has to be either fail, or it has to be pass, or it has to be an excellent. So I have three outcomes. Since I have three outcomes, I cannot go with a conventional if. I have to use a nested if. So what I would do is I would write my first if. So the first if that I'm writing over here is to look at, is this mark less than 40? Okay, is this mark less than 40? If this mark is less than 40, then it is a fail. Okay, if this mark is less than 40, then it is a fail. Or if this mark is less than 80, sorry, if this mark is less than 80, then it is a pass. Okay, so now if the mark is less than 80, then it'll display as pass. But what about scenarios where the mark is more than 80? Then obviously this criteria is fulfilled. Okay, so I'll write this. I'm defining this excellent as my false condition. And let me close all my ifs. Okay, so let me just drag this down. Okay, so now look here. Here, since the mark is more than 80, it has given me it is an excellent. Here, since the mark is less than 80, it is a pass, but it is still above 40. Here, the mark is still above 40. Here, it is 50, which is above 40, but it is less than 80, so it's a pass. Here, what has happened is it is less than 40, so it is a fail. Here, it is 10, which is less than 40, it is a fail. Here, it is 0, less than 40, it is a fail. Here it is 100. So here it is given me as excellent. So it has automatically gone to the second if, and it has fulfilled the false condition. Here it is 60, so it is a pass condition. So basically, an if, a nested if is where I already have one if over here. Okay, I'm writing one more if within the if. So such if formulas are called as nested ifs. Okay, so within one if, I'm writing another if formula. It is referred to as a nested if. Okay, so like this, I could keep defining n number of conditions. I could keep defining n number of conditions like this. Okay, so I hope I've explained the nested if part also. Okay, so if there are there any more queries?